Hello there, folks. My name is Spoonks, and I saw Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, and I loved it. Now, when the first trailers started dropping for this movie, you either landed in one of two groups of people. You either thought it was weird and were completely on board with it, or you thought it was weird and thought it looked absolutely terrible. And I was on the positive side. I was actually really looking forward to this movie, seeing how it was from the brain trust of The Lonely Island. I love their music videos, their SNL skits, and their film Pop Star Never Stop Never Stopping. I think it's hilarious, and I'm just fascinated by the idea that Disney would not only let them make a Disney movie, but go as far and absurd as they could with the premise about Chip 'n Dale, let alone the Rescue Rangers. And I'm happy to say that I was not disappointed. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. This was hands down one of the funniest, most enjoyable movies I've seen this year. And honestly, this is probably the second time this year, second to Turning Red, where I feel like Disney dropped the ball with putting this on Disney Plus, as I would have actually really liked seeing this at the theater. First, let's talk about the animation. Now, there are many ways and ideas about the world building and just the use of different media that I think are brilliant. And when they were executed, for the most part, I think it was also really well handled. I just love seeing this world filled with different styles and different uses of medium for animation, whether it be puppetry, traditional hand-drawn animation, CG, even sock puppets and stop motion have a share in this world. And I thought, once again, for the most part, it was all used very effectively. They moved nice, they blended in with the real world settings very well, and they all looked really well done and had a lot of tender and care put into them, and was really creative and overall fun to watch and see in this world. The story in here is also really engaging and interesting. It's not the next Roger Rabbit in terms of murder mysteries, if you will, as well. We figure out who the villain is halfway through the film. And in terms of a Chip 'n Dale adaptation, it's not even close. This is definitely, if you were looking for like a Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers that stays true to the show, don't watch this movie. It is more in line with something like 21 Jump Street. It takes the meta, self-aware approach, but if that does sound like your thing and you're completely on board with it, then yeah, I think it works. It doesn't feel like the films has its finger up its own butt for way too long. It feels like it just has this concept and wants to run with it, and I think they had a lot of fun with the story and, once again, the world building and the different scenarios and situations the characters get into as well. And another thing is that this movie's story is also kind of dark if you really think about it. I mean, yeah, it's still a kids movie, and they definitely do a lot to keep that PG rating so the kids can watch. But if you really switch up some of the words and phrases, even certain scenes, and try to switch the animated characters with live action characters, this would definitely be a very adult film. And I think that's what really works about it as well. The fact that, again, this is a Disney film, and they deal things like drug addictions and owing debt to like crime lords, and base it in this animated world where humans also coexist as well, makes it really funny and interesting to see where the movie goes as well. This movie is also hilarious. I laughed out loud several times throughout this movie, just from the banter between Chip and Dale to the crazy situations and scenarios, and even some of the characters they interact with throughout the movie, and even some of the references, and we'll get to that later in the video, but even some of them were so absurd and ridiculous. I cannot believe they were able to include certain characters even in this movie, but more on that later. And to add to my point on why this should have been released in the theaters, I feel like this would definitely have been the perfect movie to see with a crowd, because there are certain moments where the jokes would have been a lot more amplified if you were there with a large group of people. But again, Disney put Turning Red on Disney Plus, so I can't say I'm surprised they once again dropped the ball. But yeah, overall, this movie is really, really funny. The characters in here are also really likable and entertaining as well. You got the main duo Chip and Dale, who are really likable and entertaining, even in this new world where Chip is voiced by John Mulaney and Dale is played by Andy Samberg. They really do embody the characters for this type of movie very well. John Mulaney is the more straight man, while Dale is Andy Samberg playing as Dale is a lot more of the goofy sidekick, kind of similar to what he did with Johnny in the first Hotel Transylvania, because they definitely amplified his stupidity a bit more in the sequels. But yeah, the voice acting for the two of them is really solid, and their banter and chemistry is great, and just seeing them interact and play off of each other and seeing the relationship grow throughout the film was highly entertaining as well. But then there are also the rest of the cast, the other characters they meet along the way, and they are hilarious and highly entertaining. You got the J.K. Simmons Gumby character, the Keegan-Michael Key puppet, the Polar Express type Seth Rogen character, the Coca-Cola bear who works for the villain was also pretty funny. But the best character throughout this whole movie is so random, so out of left field, yet has so much importance in the plot and actually helps out the duo so much that I can't even tell you who it is. If you've been on the internet for like past couple days, depending on when this video will be released, I'm not going to ruin it for you because it's that smart. But if you have been on the internet, you probably know who this character is, but if you haven't, I will not give it away. It is truly something that needs to be seen to be believed. They are just that lovable of a character. And the last positive thing I can say about this movie is actually the references. Now, when the first trailer dropped, one of the biggest things everyone compared this to was Space Jam 2 and Ready Player One, where it was another hodgepodge of, look, it's that character, look how many IPs we own. And while, yes, there are moments in this movie where it does emulate those films, and we'll get to those at the end of the video, for the most part, they use the references to other IP, and keep in mind, it's not just Disney. There are other characters I cannot believe they were able to get for this movie. But anyways, they were able to use them in creative and effective ways that actually advanced the story and were also kind of really funny and hilarious to watch. It was mind-blowing that a corporation like Disney, who has built itself all around the IP they own, to actually use their references and IP for the good of the movie. I'm genuinely impressed. However, I do have many issues with this movie. First off, while I do think the ideas for the animation were excellent and for the most part it was executed very well, there are some moments with the 2D characters that do not work. You see, instead of animating these characters in 2D, even though some of them are, like Lumiere shows up. He's in the trailer. It's not really a spoiler, but anyways, there are certain characters that are actually hand-drawn 2D animation, while some are taking the Tom and Jerry movie approach, where it's cel-shaded computer animation made to look 2D. And honestly, I think the Tom and Jerry movie did that aspect better than this movie, because the characters in here definitely don't look 2D animated. They look more at like something you'd see out of a video game cutscene, and for certain shots it does look really good, but other times it can be a little wonky and kind of jerky to look at. Not to say that it's hideous or disgusting to look at. In fact, I could actually watch this movie a lot, per se, not to disrespect the hard work the animators did, because I'm sure it was a budget thing. There was a reason it was sent to Disney Plus obviously, so maybe it was a budget thing. But yeah, maybe if they do a sequel, they could probably improve on that a bit better. But as far as now, while I don't think it's horrible, it does look a bit jarring. Another issue is that obviously not every joke lands. There's some stupid puns and bad slapstick that I didn't find to be all that funny, and obviously there were some references and characters from IP that literally served no purpose other than, hey, look at this character, you know that character, you know that reference, isn't it cool that they're in this movie? And despite it being very minimal, it still had me going, okay, this was just for the name recognition. They serve no purpose for this movie. And probably the last issue I have with this movie is in regards to two characters. One of them is played by Kiki Layne. Now, I don't hate this character, and Kiki Layne did a great job, and she certainly had her moments. Her backstory is really funny, but compared to everyone else, I felt like she got the shaft a bit because her character wasn't really that interesting, and there's certain developments about her character that were made to seem a bit more significant, but then ended up not really having much of an impact. Again, I don't hate this character, and I did like some of her moments, but I feel like they could have written her a bit better. Maybe make her a little bit more animated and act a little bit more in line with some of the cartoon characters a bit. And then there's the villain. For spoiler reasons, I won't give it away, but I felt that in regards to their backstory and the specific character they chose, it was a bit too on the nose because their backstory is very similar to the real life events of the previous actor that voiced this character for sensitive reasons, and because the story is very sad and tragic. I won't discuss it too much, but basically it was a young child actor. When they grew up, Disney threw them under the bus, kicked them out, and their life ended sadly. And when I don't think it was intentional, because why would they go as far as to throw shade at this guy for something that happened 30 years ago just for a cheap joke? That is obvious. I definitely don't think that was the intention, but the fact that it was so similar to the story just kind of left a little bit of bad taste in my mouth. Maybe instead of making it similar, they could have been like, oh, the power of fame went to the character's head, and maybe emulate that story to how Dale had the power of fame and celebrity go to his head, sort of. But nope, they chose the other route. Again, don't know if it was intentional. In all honesty, I don't think it was intentional, but I felt like they could have handled this character better, or maybe even changed the character to someone else more fitting of the villain role. But even with those problems, I still really liked this movie. This is one of the most fun and enjoyable times I've had watching a movie all year. The characters really likable, the animation is really well done for the most part, the story is engaging, it's hilarious, and even the references were put to good use. If you have Disney Plus, and I'm sure the majority of you do, definitely go watch it. I think you will have a blast with it. It's fun, it's a good time killer, and I highly recommend it. And those are my thoughts on Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. What did you all think of it? If you've seen it, did you like it? Did you hate it? Comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on all the social media links at the end of the video. And until next time, stay sharp.